Alright, so this is our first background guide video to just prepare us on how to write a background guide. I'm focusing on GA because that's what I know, and I'll ask Landon to provide some crisis tips, but this is just based on our background guide policies, so it's applicable to everyone. So what are our goals of the background guide? Ultimately, there are three main goals. First of all, we want to teach the delegates and ourselves the topic. As chairs, we are expected to know the topic, and delegates also need to know the topic well enough to be able to construct legitimate international policy on the topic. And then, secondly, the background guide should suggest the blocks and the action that the committee should take, and I'll talk more about this. It is important, though, to bear in mind, as chair, it's sort of the delegate's job to decide, what blocks they are going to form in. You should coerce, but you shouldn't force. And then third is to provide a reference list for further research. So the background guide should be like the first research they read on the topic, and then they'll see in the back, in the back of the background guide, they'll see further research or the sources that you cited, and they can really dive deep into what is important for their country. And so our two inspirations for PantherMUNC are SwiffleMun and GatorMun. Now, one is good inspiration and one is bad inspiration. SwiffleMun is bad inspiration. We do not want to write background guides like SwiffleMun. GatorMun is good inspiration. So if you're looking at background guides, you can look at SwiffleMun to find out what not to do, and you can look at GatorMun to find out what you need to do. And really what not to do. So I'm going to take a look at some of the sections from my background guide at SwiffleMun last year. So this is the first screen. As we can see, there's so little here. There's just this short introduction. Can anything be done to salvage this dire situation? There we go. They're presupposing some conclusion. This makes countries like the United States and China fundamentally at a disadvantage because everyone's thinking, oh no, there's a problem. When really, it's not as pressing as this background guide makes it seem if you actually do the research. And then overview. And then this is the last of the writing, of the prose you get. After that, it's all bullet points. It's all key concerns, bullet points, major questions, numbered list, possible policy directions, bullet points, and then conclusion. It's really, and I guess the conclusion is then prose, but you get the point. It's short. It doesn't introduce, I read this all as a delegate, and I still didn't know enough about the topic. I didn't know how the UN was funded. I didn't know what the UN is already doing. I know perhaps some, possible policy directions, but this then puts countries that are in favor of these at an advantage. And then, still here, that's the key concerns. It's all bullet points. The voluntary contributions, sure, I guess. These are important points, but because they're in bullet point form, this isn't going into depth on the topic. This is just like spoon feeding it to me. This is maybe, introductory level, very surface level. As a background guide at PantherMUNC, we want in depth, and so this is good. This is what we want. This is the UN Legal Committee background guide this year from GatorMun. And we can look. This is just the introduction page, and look at it. It's very long. It teaches us everything, gives us the acronyms we need. It looks great. There's photos so we can see what it looks like. They're starting to introduce different types of autonomous weapon systems. At the end of this section, they had key terms. So I don't know what principle of humanity is. Oh, it means that even when no specific treaty or law applies, states should act according to the principles of humanity. Okay, so now I know. And that's going to help me as a delegate. Maybe there's not a treaty, but we should act in the principle of humanity. That really helps me as a delegate. And then the work cited, that SwiffleMun background guide didn't cite any sources. At the end, it was just that. There was no place for further research. Here, wow, we get lists of sources. Maybe it's not like a citation style. This is a little bit hard to read, and it's not necessarily in line, so I can't say oh, this point goes to this link. No, I kind of got to figure that out myself, but that's fine. It works. I wasn't in the legal committee. I was in a different committee, but my background guide was the same. I thought this one was a pretty high standard. And then look at how long the background guide is. It was 20 pages. And granted, some of that was rules of procedure, but that's still around like 11 or 12 pages of content. Um, Also, GatorMUN is a topic A, topic B conference, so there's, well, this room was, not all the rooms at GatorMUN, but so the topic A, and then was about half of that content, and then topic B was the other half. And so, I mean, at PantherMUNC, we should still be striving to meet like this 20-page number, even though we're only focusing on one topic. That's because we really want to go in depth on our topics. So our main rules, and these are in our policies that you can read, but I'll summarize them here. So the chair writes the background guide, not the secretariat, not ChatGPT, not your friend. No, the chair writes it. And the background guide will use our template. So there's a GA template, and I'm about to update or upload a crisis template. It's the same except for a few modifications to the rules of procedure. The background guide is in depth, and it indicates legitimate research. So not just like, oh, I looked up a Google search and I looked at the first results. No, I want you to see like the causes and the consequences, explain, everything about it. All the works are cited, so that way, the delegates, they can use the background guide as that jumping point for further research. And then no AI or plagiarism. And if this is found, like if we're reading this and this is like, oh, this is definitely feels like AI, we're going to talk with you. And if it's found that you use AI or it's very blatantly plagiarized, the background guide automatically fails and there's no appeal. And I'll talk more about what that means. So your background guide will go under a quality control period. So on August 8th, you'll submit your background guide. By August 8th, you should be done with your background guide, or at least a final draft. And you're going to submit it to the Secretariat. And our Secretary of General Assemblies, or the Secretary of Crisis if you're in a crisis, or me, it depends. We'll read it, and we'll go through and we'll be like, oh, we like this, we don't like this. And then we approve it or deny it depending on how many points that paper earned. And if you don't meet the minimum number of points, then the paper is denied. This is a dynamic period, though. So let's say, okay, you submit me your draft. Oh, it looks good, but, there were a few sections that I felt like really didn't explain much or were kind of off topic or like it wasn't explained really nicely. I'm taking off points. You don't add up to the total you need. Then the paper fails. But because the quality control period lasts for 8 weeks, you fail, and then you go and you make changes, and then you resubmit it for another quality control where we go and re-grade it, and you keep going until you pass or until the end of the period. Furthermore, this first point, I'm not sure why it's under quality control, but sure. The chair is credited as the author, but we retain all rights. That's standard. If the co-chair wants crediting, just reach out to us. We'll fit it in into our licenses or whatever. And then back to quality control. The quality controlling secretariat member is permitted to perform copy edits only. Okay. So I see. I wrote this like 5 minutes ago. I don't know why I'm confusing. But yeah, so the chair is the author, and the quality controlling secretariat member is not the author. So when we're doing our quality control, we can't change, we don't want to change the topic, or like, not the topic, the content that you've written. That would be not good. That would mean that, we're kind of authors. It's not how our agreement works. The agreement is that the chair writes the background guide. And so we'll do copy edits. Think about it like a newspaper editor. A newspaper editor doesn't change the story, but they might, be like, oh, there's supposed to be a comma here. Oh, this is a run-on sentence. Oh, semicolon here, So we'll do that. Like, when we're doing our quality control, we'll comb through the paper. If we're like, oh, this should be indented 0.25 instead of 0.5 inches, like, we do that. But if there's really major, like, content-wise, then it loses points and the paper would fail. Sorry. The final quality control is on September 26th. So if you notice, from August 8th to September 26th, it's about 2 months. That's 8 weeks. And so really during that period, they're going back and forth. When you pass, once your paper passes, it goes live on the website. And September 26th, that's the day that, that's the day that the early registration closes and normal registration opens. So that's sort of the philosophy is like early registration, they'll maybe get the topic summary. And I'll talk about that. But then normal registration, they should have the background guide. And so that's why we have the final quality control. And then the paper goes live once you pass it. So about that final quality control, you'll submit it. And let's say your paper is approved. Okay, it goes live. And let's say it's denied. Okay, well then you can appeal the decision. So the last day to appeal, you have 4 days to appeal the decision. So the last day is September 30th. And the Secretary General, I will do the appeal. You'll write up a brief statement being like, I think that my paper is good, blah, blah, blah. I go through, I have that statement in mind. I have the log of quality controls that paper went through, and then I go through and I do it. And if it still fails, the decision comes within 5 days. And if it still fails, the committee's closed. Basically, when the committee's closed, the topic is taken off the website, and the delegates are asked for a full refund, or if they want to be reassigned to other committees. Same if you fail, So also if you fail and then you don't appeal, it automatically goes to that after that September 30th date. And then the topic summary. So this was in the committee application. I decided not to because we can write it once we get into the spirit of that. But it's the first thing that a delegate realistically sees when they're signing up. So like even for early registrants, they should still see like here, this is the topic summary. This is just template. This photos are just whatever. But the topic summary really shows, it introduces me to the topic. Even as an early registrant, I should still know what the committee is about if I'm looking to do it. Like I don't want to sign up for a committee and I don't even know anything beside, like the name. Like World Health Organization, that could be so many things. So it's important that the topic summary is good. Our topic summaries will be due June 15th. That's in about, I think, 2 weeks. It's the third Monday, I believe. So yeah. And then it should be around 100 to 150 words. I sampled, the ICJ room is closed. I reassigned myself to EcoFin. It's fine, but I'll still, because I wrote the topic summary, we can go through it. And so I've highlighted the key parts. So this first key part, it's the date. So the key, like the timeline of the event. So like, when is it happening? This room really took place in the past. It was it was 2010, 2011. So it was important to set the stage. Australia files the proceedings on May 31st in 2010. And then I'm introducing the countries that are involved. Even in a topic, there will probably be key countries. Like you should still present the topics like broadly and, in a discursive manner, both sides, but there will be key countries. So like I mentioned Australia and Japan. So those are like the key countries in this topic. And so I mentioned those kind of early. And then I get to the here. This green is where I'm citing a treaty. This is the International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling. This is like the treaty that the committee is going to focus on. So I know this is ICJ, it's a little different from GA, but you should still like mention like a specific like treaty or a set of documents or like a problem, past action. Really, that's sort of what that represents. And then explaining what it is, and then Japan maintained that the DARPA 2 program is for scientific purposes, not commercial ones. So that's really the meat of the topic, like what it is, like what's the problem with it, and then what I want the delegates to do. This committee will hear the historic case based on the delegate's own legal analysis of the facts. So at the end in a GA, it'd be like this committee will, in my case, will discuss the standardization of the voluntary carbon market. Like it's kind of templatic in a way. But yeah, at the end, you should really be telling the delegates, introduce them, like what are they probably going to do? And then, okay, your committee. So in your committee application, we decided that we were going to have the chairs link the topic to the committee. And if you got it denied, I kind of explained why, but it's worth considering asking, why would we do that? And it's really because the action that the committee is going to take depends on the body. So like, let's say Maya had suggested water and she had linked it to UNEP. Okay, well, why UNEP? Okay, why not UNICEF? That's children. Why not, UNFCCC? That's the Paris Climate Agreement. Why not UN Water? And yeah, we ended up going with UN Water because it's important to know, like, yeah, UNICEF would probably deal with it by focusing on the children. UNFCCC would do it by focusing on the terms of the Paris Agreement, because the Paris Agreement is how the UNFCCC anyways. And that really goes into knowing your country's mandate. So each organization, each body of the UN has what's called its mandate. The mandate is what that committee can do, what its resolutions have the jurisdiction over. And all GA, like a GA committee, you might be like, oh, well, the mandate is nothing because it can only produce recommendations. Well, what can it produce recommendations on? That's really what the mandate is. And so when you're writing your background guide, it's really important that you don't steer into that. I know at Gatormon, I was in my dissect room and a lot of people were deviating into humanitarian. Dissect can't pass a resolution on humanitarian efforts. That's for SOCHUM. So it's important to know your body's mandate. I would look into that sooner rather than later. And then you're going to write in a manner that emphasizes how your specific committee will solve the problem. So not just about the topic in general, but focus on like your committee's interpretation or how they're going to tackle it. So like I know my topic is the voluntary carbon markets, like organizations that buy like carbon credits to like offset their carbon emissions. This is a very unregulated industry right now. And so I could have done UNEP, to focus on the environmental aspects. How do we know that this is good for the environment? How do we know if this is really effective? Is this something that we should pursue? But I chose to go under EcoFin because countries and companies, they're trading their carbon credits as if they're like money or commodities. And so I really want to focus on the trade and the financial aspect of it. How can you convert carbon credits between different currencies and different organizations? How can we standardize the way that different organizations define carbon credits in different ways? And so how do we make sure that they're defined in the same way? So they're sort of like transferable. And how do we know that like you're not double counting? It's like, I'm going to plant these trees and I'm going to get carbon credits from this institution. I'm going to get them from this institution. Well, that's sort of a problem right now. And so that's something that EcoFin is more fit to solve than UNEP, because UNEP would really focus on like how are you going to do this? Plant trees, like on the more environmental aspects. My committee is going to focus more on like the financial aspects. And so that's really something to bear in mind when you're writing your topic and your background guide, is how is your committee going to solve the topic? How is your committee going to look at this and say, this is how we're going to solve it? Because each committee is going to do it a little differently. And your committee, I say this at the bottom, kitchen sink, that just means everything. So like your committee's resolution really should not be an everything resolution that's going to solve world hunger and ensure world peace and everything. No, that's very idealistic. That would never happen. And a lot of inexperienced delegates want to do it. So in your background guide, it's important that you steer away from that. You focus on what your committee can do. Remember that mandate, and really just drill that in while you're writing your background guide. So when writing, like I said, stay focused on the topic, and don't significantly divest into the tangents. So like, yeah, I could talk a lot about, whatever. Like I could go really in depth onto like side points, but I want to focus on carbon credits in my room in specific. But you don't mix up tangents versus going in depth. You can go in depth on a topic and you can go into tangents. Think about like breadth versus depth. Like, yeah, I can go wide or I can go deep. We want to go deep, not wide. It's important that you present both sides in both arguments. That's really, again, when you're writing those topic statements, making sure that you weren't like being like, US good, China bad, whatever. Like, you can't say that. Like, that doesn't promote good, honest, two-sided debate, which is what we value in MUN. You should stick to the facts, the mandate, and the treaties. So really, you should know the documents, and you're going to stick to the facts. You don't need to go too much in the interpretation, like, I think that this is good, and avoid using like strongly opinionated language. Just really stick to the facts. stick to what's known. The delegates will make their interpretation when they look into their country's national policy. And that really goes into the top of the background guide policies. Its preface mentions how a background guide should go in depth on the topic and then dip into national policy. And so that's really what that means. Each country, each delegate will interpret the facts in a different way depending on their country's policy. So your job is not to present the national policies. They will figure that out. That's the delegate's job. Your job is to write a background guide that presents all of the facts. And then cite all your sources. Like I said, SOFOMUN doesn't cite their sources. I don't know why. That's so stupid. It was very difficult to find my sources when I did SOFOMUN. So cite them all. And I'll sort of go into that. And then the template formatting, like I said, I'll post another video. There'll be another video to watch that goes into how to do the template, how to cite your stuff correctly. Really go into that because it's important that the background guides look cohesive and look like they came from the same organization. So where to get your sources? You're gonna hate me for this, but Wikipedia. And Wikipedia not as something you cite, but go down to the references page and you can see immediately I get, good sources. These are peer-reviewed papers. These are news articles. This is news. This is a paper. This is a paper. This is news. And then as you go further, more papers and more news. It keeps going and going. 38 references. That's 38 things I can mention in my 38 things I can mention in my background guide. Those are 38 good points to make. UN documents, always welcome. So undocs.org, there's like a library and you can go and you can look up past resolutions and such. And then treaties.un.org, that's where you can see individual treaties. Remember in GA, you can't in your resolution can't be like, and makes a treaty to do this. No, but the treaty informs how the GA operates. GA doesn't make treaties, but it's still important to bear those in mind. Look at the news, specifically try to focus on like unbiased news sources, like the Associated Press or Reuters. Yeah, Reuters. That try to focus on the international sphere from a global perspective rather than heavily biased towards one specific political ideology. And then your specialized sources, JSTOR and Google Scholar have those research papers. If you want to go in depth, you don't have to understand it. Perhaps just read the abstract and the conclusion, and that's all you need. The Cornell Legal Information Institute, if your committee is doing something that's very legally involved, maybe you need to explain what a certain legal principle means. When is it legal for your committee to do this? That's where you can start to look. So your job is really to begin research ASAP and to start your topic summary ASAP. Don't wait until, June 13th or June 15th? Don't wait until the day before. Start now. Start writing it up now. The ICJ one took me 5 days to write just to figure out the topic. The topic summary doesn't take long to write. The time is figuring out the topic because there's so many different things about it. And really, it's at bringing it in, focusing on what your committee can do. And then once your topic summary is done, you should start writing. And that's why I say do it ASAP because our check-in dates are going to be close. And that August date for the background guide is going to come in really close. And you don't want to have to be writing your background guide during the quality control period. That's where you're making edits, not writing the paper. Because school is back and, nobody wants that. We don't want that. You don't want that. So just get it done now. It's the summer. Do a little bit every day. Come to the library. Have a drink, I'll post a second video sometime soon focusing on the more mechanistic aspects of it. So like how to format stuff. Google Docs is really finicky. That's the way we write it in. But Google Docs is finicky. And so I'll sort of explain how to do that just to make sure that the paper looks right. So then the quality controlling secretary doesn't have to, spend 40 minutes, setting all your headings to heading 2 and setting all your text to normal text or re-indenting your stuff. So yeah, thank you.